When it comes to home theater, there's nothing quite like having a three-dimensional, immersive experience that feels both natural and believable when watching your favorite movie. Most home theaters have various speakers placed throughout the room in a surround sound configuration, like maybe a 5.1, a 7.1.4, or maybe even a 9.1.6 speaker layout. But what do you do if your room isn't conducive to utilizing surround speakers, height speakers, or even a subwoofer? Definitive Technology offers a creative approach and designs their speakers in such a way that could aid in these situations. Recently, Definitive Technology sent me their Dimension DM70 floor standing speakers along with their DM20 center channel speaker for review. Now, it's been many years since I've heard Definitive Technology speakers, so I was really excited to get them in, check them out, and demo them in my own space. Now, if you've been following the channel, you'll notice that I'm beginning to incorporate more and more videos on how to set up a home theater in a living room setup. This is because 2/3 of you stated that you do not have a dedicated theater, so I wanted to make some content that's more relatable to you. For this review, the Definitive Technology speakers are being powered by the Denon AVR X4800 9.4 channel AVR with no subwoofer attached. Definitive Technology has always taken quite a different approach when it comes to speaker design. The DM70 towers utilize a bipolar array. The goal of a bipolar design is to provide omnidirectional sound to help with immersion and provide a much wider soundstage. On the front of the cabinet, you'll find a 1-inch aluminum oxide dome tweeter flanked by a pair of 5 1/4 mid-range drivers. Now, I would love to show you some sexy B-roll footage of the actual drivers, but the speakers are covered by acoustically transparent fabric that is not removable. Now, although this likely increases the wife acceptance factor, for guys like me that enjoy seeing the speakers and prefer to not use speaker grills, this is a bit of a bummer not to have that option. If a tweeter or driver were to fail or to blow, I would imagine it would make it extremely difficult for the consumer like you or me to replace those parts on our own. The mid-range drivers feature a unique patented balanced double surround system with linear response waveguide. Try saying that 3 times. Simply put, the speakers were designed with the goal of providing smooth off-axis response and a well-balanced sound between the tweeter, mid-range drivers, and the woofers. Now, what makes this speaker unique is they also have the same tweeter and mid-range drivers on the rear of the cabinet, which fires against your front wall, and that sound is then reflected towards your listening position. To handle the lower frequencies, the DM70 towers are equipped with a built-in 10-inch active subwoofer, as well as 2 passive radiators in each cabinet. The 10-inch active driver is powered by an internal 250-watt peak Class D amplifier. As the 10-inch driver moves and creates pressure inside the cabinet, it causes the dual 10-inch passive radiators to move and create additional bass. Looking at the rear, we find a switch for the tweeter, depending on whether you like a more dispersed or a more focused sound. Set it to 0 dB if you prefer a full bipolar sound. Moving the switch down reduces that top end of the rear firing speakers by about 6 decibels, which puts more emphasis on those front firing drivers and provides a more forward focused sound. Since I wasn't using surround speakers, I had it set to 0 dB to provide a more enveloping soundstage. To the right, there's a knob for adjusting the level of bass from the 10-inch drivers. This allows you to easily customize the amount of bass they produce in your room. Down at the bottom, we find 2 sets of binding posts. One is for the up-firing height module, and the other set is for the main rear speaker inputs. Hidden beneath the magnetic Definitive logo on the top of the cabinet, you'll discover the option to attach the DM90 up-firing height module for Dolby Atmos and DTS:X effects. If we look at the very bottom of the DM70, you'll find adjustable height pads, as well as there's additional spikes that you can insert if you're placing them on carpet. Having that adjustability provides more stability for the towers in case your floor isn't perfectly level. I found that aiming the tweeters directly on axis seemed to reduce the level of immersion. Now in my space, I found a medium amount of toe-in was needed to provide the most enveloping sound. Aiming the tweeters a few feet behind my listening position seemed to work out the best. Now, as with all speakers, adjusting the amount of toe-in can greatly impact the way the speakers perform in your room, so be sure to try different amounts to see what works best for you. Although they have a narrow profile, you still want to keep them several inches from your wall or entertainment center to allow for the rear-firing speakers and the 10-inch woofer to breathe. The DM70s provide a substantial amount of bass in my living room that opens up to the kitchen, breakfast nook, and a dining room. Now, it wasn't earth-shattering bass like you get with a dedicated subwoofer, but they definitely fill in the lower frequencies quite nicely while listening to music and watching movies. If you haven't seen the movie Ambulance, I highly recommend it. Not only does it provide a good story, but it's filled with phenomenal action sequences and a fantastic music score. Although the DM70 does not extend well below 30 Hz, they did very well in the mid-bass frequencies, providing ample bass during gunshots as well as explosions. The Definitive Technology speakers did a great job at providing an immersive experience, and the DM20 center channel anchored the dialogue quite nicely. Watching Jurassic World Dominion was a lot of fun to experience on this system. Bass was full and impactful when the dinosaurs would stomp throughout the movie. I found for my room, I preferred the subwoofer setting on the rear of the speakers set to about the 2 o'clock position. The 10-inch active and passive woofers provided bass that was not only smooth, but it didn't seem to distort at even high volume. One area the DM70 lacks is in the low-end extension, as they're only rated down to 30 Hz. In Top Gun Maverick, when the missiles are dropping onto the bass, I could tell that the DM70s were not reaching the lowest octaves during that explosion, so you miss out on some of the more tactile bass from that scene. Now, because of that, I would highly recommend pairing the DM70s with one or even more dedicated subwoofers. If you want to keep within the Definitive Technology brand, they do offer 4 subwoofers. They've got a DN8, a DN10, a DN12, as well as a DN15. Now, I have always been an advocate of subwoofers that at least reach down to 20 Hz in a movie setting. If you want to experience what 20 Hz has to offer, you'll need to go with the largest DN15, as the other 3 subwoofers that Definitive Technology offers are only rated down to 25 Hz and above. Now, I really like the design of the DM20 center channel. It has a super slim profile due to utilizing 4-inch mid-range drivers and a 1-inch tweeter. And at 22 pounds, it's quite hefty and has a premium feel to it. Looking at the rear of the unit, you'll see 2 mounting brackets that would be perfect for mounting this directly beneath your TV. And if you're rocking a soundbar, the DM20 would be a massive upgrade over most soundbars when you pair that with a dedicated AVR. I found the dialogue to be clear without being overly bright. And because of the small drivers and only extending down to 91 Hz, you'll definitely want to set them to small in the AVR and route those lower frequencies to the DM70s or a dedicated subwoofer. Both the DM70 and the DM20 have a nominal impedance of 4 ohms, which means they're going to demand more from your AVR or your amplifier. The Denon AVR 4800H that I was using to power the speakers provided plenty of power for this system. But keep in mind, I was only driving 3 speakers, which should be easy for almost any AVR. If you're powering 7, 9, or maybe 11 Definitive Technology speakers with just your AVR, you may find that you would greatly benefit from adding an external amplifier due to those 4 ohm impedance and relatively low sensitivity. Now, overall, I have really enjoyed this system. The bipolar design is quite a bit different than what I'm used to, and it will certainly not be for everyone. But I do like the fact that the towers have some adjustments on whether you want a full bipolar sound or a more forward-focused sound. If you have a dedicated theater room with a lot of absorption panels, they might not be ideal, as the bipolar design would likely be minimized. Although this works fine in larger rooms like mine, I could easily see this system being great for someone with a small living room or maybe even an apartment that has limited space. With a smaller room, you'll get even more reflections than I do in my open floor plan layout, and thus maximizing that bipolar design. The sleek design and built-in 10-inch woofers allow you to have a good amount of bass without having to have separate dedicated subwoofers. Now, I'm not saying that the DM70 doesn't benefit from a subwoofer. They're just a great option if you do not have the option of implementing a subwoofer into your home theater. Now, for the best experience, I would recommend pairing these 3 speakers with a dedicated subwoofer to provide the depth needed to handle the frequencies to 20 Hz and possibly below. If this system sounds like a good fit for your setup, I'll have links to it down in the description below, as well as other speakers, AVRs, and subwoofers that would pair well with it. As always, you guys be blessed, and we will catch you in the next video.